Hello, beautiful soul. Welcome to my YouTube channel or my podcast. I'm Will Caminada, the multidimensional guide and Pleiadian channel, and I'm here to help you awaken, heal, and expand your consciousness. So today I'm bringing a conversation episode with Brandon Beachum. Brandon is an entrepreneur, thought leader, author, and the host of the Positive Had podcast, which you might have heard before. He's also the host of the late night style talk show, Optimystic. Brandon has been a serial entrepreneur since childhood, and in 2011, while living on a friend's couch, he co-founded what is his present day company called ResortShare. And today, Brandon's primary focus is on helping people shift their perspectives to understand the ultimate nature of reality and create more of what they want to see in the world. So in this awesome conversation, we talked a lot about his spiritual awakening and entrepreneurship journey, which is very much related. And we talked about his book, The Golden Key, Modern Alchemy to Unlock Infinite Abundance. So we talked a lot about abundance and manifestation. He talks about the 8 keys to abundance. So I hope and I'm sure that you will find something here in this conversation that will resonate with your heart and with your soul. And if it brings value, please comment below, subscribe to my channel, follow the podcast, and also connect with Brandon. You'll find all the links in the description. For now, enjoy the show. Hello, Brandon. Thank you so much for being here on the podcast.
Hey, Will, how are you?
Good. It's a pleasure to connect with you all the way from LA. And I'm excited to talk to you about all things abundance and your book, which is called The Golden Key, Modern Alchemy to Unlock Infinite Abundance. And just before I forget, I want to share this with all the listeners and viewers. Brandon is gifting the book for free. There's a link in the description, and you can type the code TWCP, that stands for the Will Caminada podcast, and you get the book for free. So
Yeah, audio and or ebook.
that's wonderful. So thank you so much. And I just want to share it before I forget, but it will be in the description. And just before we start talking about abundance and your book, I'd love for you to talk a little bit about your story, maybe your spiritual awakening or your hero's journey, if you will.
Mm-hmm.
So you're an entrepreneur.
Yep.
And also, I believe the way I see it, you're also a spiritual leader or a spiritual light worker.
I like to say I teach best what I most need to learn. So
Right.
that's how I approach it.
That's wonderful. I'm just interested in how these two things interconnected in your life.
Mm-hmm.
How did you incorporate spirituality into your career and into your business?
Mm. You know, great question. I started down the path, I suppose, going back, 25 years or so ago, I had my spiritual awakening, or remembering, as I like to put it. And I often say that it's like, stepping into a teacher role with this stuff I can't ever teach someone something they don't already know. It's a matter of remembering what you've forgotten, what you have amnesia to. So that's how I view it. And so, yeah, I mean, I started, I've been a serial entrepreneur my whole life. And, from the time I was a kid, selling candy at school to, just many entrepreneurial ventures over the years. And so it, of course, all naturally merges at some point when I was raised very conservative Christian, and it never quite jived some of the, ideas and limitations and, the limitations that organized religion can put on what God is, even the word alone is so charged. I like to say source, higher self, consciousness, the universe, but I met someone who had some claim to have some intuitive abilities in my, in the mid 90s, if you will. I was, 21, 22, pretty young. And it sort of shook me up like, oh my gosh, she not only claimed to have these gifts, but I've seen her do some things that kind of validate and support that she does have gifts. Maybe there's something to this other than what I was raised, this sort of dogmatic, hell and brimstone conservative Christian ideology. And so I started experimenting and exploring and reading books. And, I remember reading a book about astral projection was one of the first things, out of body experiences. And I was telling my brother about like, hey, this book claims that you can leave your body through meditation or through lucid dreaming, and which is becoming awake in your dream. And the technique it gave, if you can do that, then you can say, okay, I want to leave my body now, and you will. And I was telling him what I was hearing about, learning about in this book, and he thought I was crazy. And at that time, he was like, yeah, I don't know if I believe this at all. I don't think I believe this at all. However, this lucid dreaming thing you're talking about, becoming awake in your dream, I used to do that as a kid. I would wake up in my dream and fly around and take control, if you will. And I was like, well, if it ever happens again, try leaving your body, because supposedly it's easy in that state if you can become lucid. Next thing I know, he goes from one day kind of making fun of me for believing this stuff to the next day looking like he's seen a ghost, saying, oh my gosh, because we talked about it, it triggered me having a lucid dream again. I remembered what you said because I was lucid. I said, leave my body. I left my body. I'm standing outside of it. I'm waving my hand in front of my face, and it's just energy, and my physical body's laying there on the bed. I can see it. And and so it was pretty cool validation for me then to see, okay, here's someone who I knew was not going to feed me, a lie, and literally their whole tune had changed in a day based off their experience. So that really led me down the path of, studying, learning, reading, and, like books like Conversations with God. I actually just had the opportunity to interview Neil Donald Walsh, who wrote those books. And those were very instrumental early on in my journey, and, on my own podcast, Positive Head. But, it's and from there, all I can assume, is because it is my dharmic path to do the work that I do, the work that we do, it was very much like, as I sort of learned a lot of these concepts, that we are all one with the source consciousness that creates and animates all things. The consciousness that animates my form is the consciousness that animates your form. The separation between us is illusory in nature. That we have relative truths here. You and I can be separate. That's true. You and I are one. That's also true, depending on the vantage point from which we're speaking. All these ideas and concepts that I was learning about as I went down the rabbit hole were like, oh my gosh, of course it's structured this way. This is so elegant and brilliant and simple yet complex. This makes so much more sense than a, egotistical, jealous God who will torture me if I don't, if I don't adhere to his forced love, and so, then from there, it was just talking to anyone who would listen about it. And, eventually 2015, I launched a podcast. If you listen to episode 1, now we're at around 2100. If you listen to episode 1, it's like, okay, my friends and family's ears are bleeding for me talking about this stuff incessantly. I need another outlet. Hopefully someone will tune into this thing. And that's where I started really putting myself out there beyond my sphere of influence, circle of friends and family, etc. And so, it's of course, then it goes naturally into your work and your entrepreneurial ventures. And I had quite the hero's journey tale of, being on my friend's couch and creating a company that went on to be an Inc. fastest growing private company. And, then sort of having a lot of trial and tribulation there, where I lost everything. And, it's a whole story unto itself. But from there, it's one thing to understand these ideas conceptually, that, all is one, right? Very simple to understand theoretically. it's a whole nother thing to put it into practice. That becomes a lifelong journey, right? It's like Mike Tyson. I always quote Mike Tyson. He said, everyone has a plan till you get punched in the face. And that's sort of how life is. Like, oh, I'm 1996. I get it. I understand spirituality and that I'm one with God and an extension of source. And until someone comes along and does something quote unquote wrong, bad, I don't approve of, I'm judging, I don't like. And then, I'm acting a fool and reacting and, judging and all those things. So it's really a lifelong practice to walk the talk of understanding that life is happening for you, not to you. And that's real easy when things are good that are happening. And it's a little different when it's something that you don't prefer at a conscious level. And that's really what the dance is about and the journey is about.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Thank you so much for sharing. And I love what you said. It's a lifelong practice, right?
Daily conscious effort.
Yeah, even the spiritual awakening, I usually say it is a journey. Sometimes we attribute that awakening to a specific moment, but it goes and comes in waves for me. And I think I've heard, I might be wrong, but I think it was Lee Harris that said entrepreneurship is like one of the most spiritual things that you can ever go through. I know you've had him on your podcast.
Well, yeah, it's funny you mentioned him because I met him at a conference where he then invited me to come on and speak to a group about entrepreneurship, and we became fast friends. And so my whole friendship and history with Lee is tied into this topic.
Amazing. It's amazing. And would you agree with that entrepreneurship?
Here's my I love quotes and clever sayings and plays on words. I'm such a nerd for the stuff like that. And one of the things I say in my book, The Golden Key, it's all spiritual business. It's all spiritual business. Everything is spiritual in its, business, entrepreneurship, spiritual business. Personal, interpersonal relationship, spiritual business. Your spirit is a business person figuring out how to grow and expand its business of being a greater and grander soul. And so
when you design a plan that never works, right?
It's all spiritual business, and you're learning how to, upgrade the corporation of your soul.
Yeah. It's like when you're making plans, God is laughing, right?
Yeah, right. Life's what happens when your plans don't work out, for sure.
Yeah.
And and that's really where the rubber meets the road, for all of us, is, starting. One of the keys in the book is trust the mystery. I always say, my human is playing checkers, but my higher self is playing chess. So I'm seeing it from a vantage point of, based off everything I know, feel, desire, want, my limited human perspective, this is what is best for me in the direction I wish to go. And there's your human journey, I believe, is playing out within a bigger story, a bigger narrative, right? Another level, a deeper level of storyline, if you will. And what you think should be and next and all those things doesn't necessarily jive with what your higher self, who's seen things from a much broader view, believes. So it's really a dance. This idea of manifesting our reality, I believe, is a dance. There's a lot of things, as I put it in the book, a lot of ingredients that go into this stew, the soup of manifestation. Well, what was my vibrational offering today? What was my vibrational offering a year ago, 10 years ago? What about my last lifetime? How is that playing? It's all, there's a lot playing into how the thing cooks up and ultimately.
And as you expand your awareness, there's even like more and more that you start to discover and dig into.
Yeah, layers of this stuff. I mean, I have friends. One friend comes to mind who I have a few who've had experiences of shifting their perspective, shifting where they're bilocating, experiencing multiple lifetimes simultaneously, and moments that are tied to this moment in some way, shape, or form that are inexplicable from our human calculations. But, I'll share a little story that this particular friend claims that when she goes to bed at night, she'll spend years, decades in other lifetimes. So she'll wake up in the morning and have just spent 30 years in another lifetime. And so it's pretty intense to think about that, and like I said, I never speak in absolutes. I mean, I haven't experienced that. I don't have any reason not to believe her. And she certainly isn't it's not something that she's even broadcasting to get attention. You know what I mean? And so every time I see her, I'm like, oh, well, tell me a story. What was your dream last night? And but she'll have experiences during waking life too. And she told me one time that she was sitting at a piano and she doesn't play piano. And yet she, in the moment, sitting at this piano, triggered her into a lifetime in the 1800s where she was at a piano, except she played piano in that lifetime. And she was playing and crying and feeling intensely because her partner had just left her or something, gone away and left her. I don't remember the exact details, but she was sorrowful and mourning and playing the piano. And she said she was literally experiencing both that version of herself and this version simultaneously. And actually in this lifetime was able to play the same song that was being played in that lifetime because of the connection between the two versions of herself. And in this lifetime, she really didn't know how to play the piano. So those sorts of things, wow, it really blows your mind and helps to give some perspective into, there's more than meets the eye to what's popping up in your moment.
Yeah, yeah, so many layers. I totally believe that. I mean, that's the core of the work that I do around multidimensionality. So stories like that is just yep, confirmation that we are indeed multidimensional beings. I'm curious if you could talk a little bit about that moment when you just mentioned that you were at your friend's couch, and from that moment you started your business. Maybe maybe someone who's hearing or watching this, they're in that position or somewhat in that position, so maybe that story can inspire them as well.
Sure. Well, yeah. So at that moment, I had launched. I had some pretty significant spiritual breadcrumbs, as I like to call them. Synchronicities, communication from spirit leading me down a path to do a particular project, and it was a music distribution platform. This is 2009 timeframe, and I kind of followed the breadcrumbs and put this whole thing together. At the time, it was kind of like MySpace meets Spotify before Spotify with its own. It was all about supporting music artists and social media platform aspect, and then people would earn tokens before crypto called blooms that I would pay people out in blooms. And I'd been guided pretty strongly by spirit to create this thing. And so I did it, and it grew to thousands of users. And then I sort of had struggles with the financial aspect of it, and decided to kind of, okay, I need to manifest the money to do this right. This takes more revenue than I have, and had hit some financial walls, and personal tragedy had happened in my close family connection. And so I decided, let me put that on hold and just manifest something that can just be a cash cow to fund this thing properly. And I was led to launch a travel related company. And, at that time, money was really tight. I was on my friend's couch, as I mentioned, but I felt like I am one with source. I am infinitely abundant. It is me. I am it, anything that's happened up to this point is nothing more than, helping me to sharpen my axe, if you will. Smooth seas never made for a skilled sailor. I came to be a skilled sailor. So this is the learning and growth. And so, went this idea that I had, the company's called ResortShare, went on to be an Inc. fastest growing private company, 100+ employees, and, in within a few years. And, even that, though, it was wild because I got to the point where I was offered, me and my partners, I started it, brought in my brother very quickly, then a very close friend, one of my best friends. And 4 or 5 years in, we got offered to be bought out for a lot of money, $30 million. And within 12 hours of that offer, we lost 90% of our revenue because of two companies merging in the travel space, both huge billion-dollar companies, and one of them wanted to push us out, and they were effective at doing that. And then, one of my partners betrayed me and tried to steal what was left. And, it was like, it's like a movie script, the way it all unfolded. Yeah. And then that betrayal, I mean, I write about it in my book, and, it's my hero's journey tale. And that person 5 years later, 6 years later, the day I printed my book, contacted me for the first time and said, I know you probably don't want to hear from me, but I've been on a spiritual awakening myself now. I get it now. I'm sorry. I'm sorry for what happened all those years ago. My own intuitive friend said something about us writing a book together is going to happen. And I was like, well, I just submitted my book 2 hours ago, and you're the villain in my hero's journey tale. And, but what was great about it is, it wasn't what I had hoped would happen, but it was what needed to was meant to happen. It gave me an opportunity. Months before that same friend betrayed me, I had just launched my podcast in 2015. And he said, the way his head was thinking at the time, very kind of deceptive and devious and scheming, he said, we had a fourth partner that came in towards the end just to help us sell. And he's like, what if our new fourth partner, because you launched your podcast while you're still on payroll at ResortShare, what if he then tried to lay claim to some percentage of ownership because, hey, you're still getting paid by this, this is how his mind thought, like how to, get in and scheme and da-da-da. And I said to him, I said, if he were to do that, I would give it to him because I'm infinitely abundant and there's only more where that came from. You can't take what I am. Little did I know, months later, that exact thing didn't play out, but we got offered to be bought out for $30 million. Within 12 hours of that offer, we found out there's a merger in the travel space, and Booking.com, where we were doing most of our revenue, 90% of our revenue, said, we're so sorry, but we've made this partnership and the partner doesn't like you guys and they're huge, so we have to stop working with you. And therefore we lost 90% of our revenue. And then a month after that, I found out these two business partners were trying to scheme to kind of take what was left from me and my brother. And I got to say, yeah, Christmas Eve, 2015, I've uncovered your plot to try and take what's left after we got hit by this asteroid. You don't need to take it. You can have it. I just want away from your toxic energy. And I walked away. It's hard thing to do. Months earlier, we had been offered $30 million. Now I'm giving it away just to get out, get away. And, from that toxic energy. And then years later, I write about it in my book, and they contact me the day I submit the book to make amends. Now we're friends again. And, and I know that person was actually playing the role for me, that they were designed soul contract that we had. I had Dr. Eben Alexander on Positive Head as a podcast guest many years ago, a couple times. And I don't know if you're familiar with his work. Dr. Eben Alexander is he got a lot of attention. He wrote a book called Proof of Heaven, and the reason it became a huge New York Times bestseller, Oprah interviewed him, and a lot of attention because he was a Harvard neurosurgeon that wasn't into anything spiritual. And then, what do you know? The Harvard brain surgeon gets meningitis, and one day he's fine, and the next day his brain is being eaten alive by this bacteria, and he's in a coma. A week later, His brain is fried. They say, sorry, he's gone. Family, you're going to need to pull the plug. They pulled the plug. He miraculously came back. All he remembered after he was back was his time spent on the other side and what he was shown. And one of the things that he talked about in my interview with him is the villains in your story are often your greatest allies, your best friends. They've signed up to play that role for you. And, you know, it's fascinating when you start looking through that lens. And I wrote about that, like, hey, this happened to me, hero's journey tale, and I know it happened for me, not to me. There's actually a lot of synchronicity around it. I have crazy synchronicity with my birthday. It's my dad's birthday, my great-grandmother's birthday. Her mother died on that day. That individual that betrayed me, his baby mama and grandmother, that birthday, you know, and there's even more. It keeps going. It's really wild, the synchronicity with my birthday. But so it's like, oh, I can see the threads of connectivity, the soul connections, you know. Oh, the day I print the book 6 years later, he's now new chapter. I'm sorry, we're friends again, you know.
Yeah, it looks like it's the just cycles of evolution and how evolution works, which is, you know, this spiral journey that comes back around and it just keeps coming. And in that, you strengthen your belief system, right? And it feels to me that through this journey, you were strengthening this abundance mindset. You know, the example you gave me of, like, you have it because I'm infinite, right? It takes, I believe it takes more than just a belief. It's like a frequency.
Well, I was forced to walk the talk, you know, or I was given the option to walk the talk, right?
Yeah.
And I took it, and it wasn't easy. And, but
you surrendered to
it.
Yeah.
It wasn't life's what happened when my plans didn't work out.
So was it through that process that you got to perhaps download the 8 keys to abundance that you write in your book? And if you can, I know it's a lot because you've written a book about it, so book is out there for people to read it, but if you could perhaps just give a little glimpse of these 8, it would be
amazing. I think that's a great way to approach it. It's the way I put it is, you know, obviously I'm a talker. I can be verbose. I have 2,100 podcast episodes, you know, where I wax poetic about this stuff for almost a decade now. And the book for me was an opportunity to distill it into 8 keys that I've sort of uncovered over, you know, my version of, we're all talking about the same thing with our own flavor and perspective and vibrational offering in it. And so for me, it was, okay, how do I distill all this down, 25 years of deep exploration of the ultimate nature of reality, into 8 keys and 100 pages and 3 hours if you listen to the audiobook, which was quite the accomplishment for me to get it that narrowed down. But yeah, the 8 keys, as I put them, is see the oneness, know the illusion, focus your flow, align your intentions, be, trust the mystery, love what comes, and master the universe. And that's spelled Y-O-U, universe. Master the universe.
Wonderful. Is there one that you would like to explore or maybe go a little deeper? It's hard for you to say, like, one is more important than the other, but which one?
All necessary.
Maybe what's coming up for you right now, maybe even in your life that you could share. I know I have one that I would like to talk about, but I'll let you.
Sure. Well, I really like, I guess I tend to go to trust the mystery and love what comes a lot of times in conversations like these, because once you can get this foundational idea, these two, put them together, trust the mystery and love what comes. If you can put those two together as sort of your foundational operating system for what, I'm my mere mortal part of myself only has so much visibility. I can't begin to comprehend all the connections and the whys and the whens and the wheres in the house. I can have an idea about what direction I would like to navigate based off of the information that I have. But if I'm really being wise, I know that I only see and understand so much. Mm-hmm. And therefore, there's a part of me that comes to that, as you touch on surrender. Like I don't fully see it all, but I know that it's happening for me and not to me. I trust the mystery. I trust my higher self. I trust source. I trust God. I trust the universe, whatever you want to call it. It is a benevolent universe. Even the things that appear dark, you've never seen like the art behind me or the beautiful picture of the cosmos, which, by the way, both our pictures are very similar. There is no great work of art without shadow in it. The higher the branches, the deeper the roots. It is a necessary component and contrast. So I believe it is all happening for love. Mm-hmm. For love to mean anything, there has to be, love, live spelled backwards is evil, right? It's a necessary part of it. So it doesn't mean it's pretty. It doesn't mean we don't do what we can to stand for love and move away from it, but when we understand it, it takes the sting out of it to some degree. So if you can learn to just, I know just enough to know I don't know much. So, but I do trust that it's happening for me, not to me. And it's all ultimately happening for love at the end of the day. That's the foundation, the force that everything spins around. And that leads into, of course, so therefore, the only thing to do is love what comes. Or as, my friend Matt Kahn says, whatever arises, love that. Mm. And so you move into trusting the mystery and realizing that it's happening for you, not to you. And you can be, or Eckhart Tolle put it very well, to always frame to yourself when something is coming up. Can I be the space for this? And the answer is you can. And that's why it's coming up to, smooth seas never made for a skilled sailor, like I said earlier. So here we go. You're expanding and you're growing, and growing pains are a real thing. And when you pass those tests by bringing love to it, you change the way it is received. And it's sort of, I believe everything's sort of neutral by design. That one of those two partners that betrayed me. I remember when the one came in, the last one who was only there a short period of time, was trying to take us to an exit, a cell. I remember saying to him, I don't know if you're Jesus or the devil, like jokingly. I remember saying that. And then, and the answer is yes. I had a lot of energy and I'd given a lot of energy over the years to the idea of someone stealing my idea or betraying me or whatever. And so I'm coloring what arises with those beliefs, and, where attention goes, energy flows. So it's all neutral, and it shows up. It can be anything to you, depending on you and all the factors at play and what manifests that are even beyond our total comprehension. We can sort of peck at it and get some ideas around it, but at the end of the day, it's more under the hood than we could possibly understand, but we can trust it and we can love it. And that's going to lead it to the best possible outcome. That's the recipe. It will always lead it to the best possible. The silver lining, the lump of coal will eventually show you some form of diamond, right? And that's all a diamond is coal that held up really well under pressure, right? So,
yeah. I love what you said about the neutrality of it, that everything is neutral by design, because I feel like love is actually a neutral energy. And I channeled this from the Pleiadians, and they often say that the energy of love is neutral, is non-dual, right? It's not good or bad. So even when you say like love what comes, I feel like maybe some people might be questioning, how can I love what comes if what's coming doesn't feel good or doesn't look good, right? It's chaotic or it's painful. But if you're able to perhaps get to that neutrality of love and understand
Mm,
what you're saying, that everything is for you,
yep.
then you're able to love because you're not in that dualistic mindset of love
Right.
needs to feel good, right?
Right. Well, that's a great point. Yeah. And the way I sort of look at this particular topic is, a lot of people have the idea that, the aim is all light and all, happiness.
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't believe that's the case. You came here to experience it all. What
Mhm.
you can move into is a place you may not by design, and nor would you want to be happy all the time, because then it's not even, you know,
Achievable.
Christmas every day is no longer Christmas, you know. And so, but what you can do is choose to be at peace.
Mm.
You can always be at peace with what is. And it doesn't mean you won't have the range of emotions or, any of those things. But, I saw a meme the other day that really, it was so good and true. And I'm someone who's can be very moved by music and lyrics and,
Yeah, me
you
too.
know, the universe, one song, right? It's like music is such a powerful medium. And I saw this funny meme, and it's like, something like me playing back that song that made me cry so it can just hurt me a little good one more time. Like there's a part of you, that and actually I had a guest on Positive Head recently, Carolyn, oh, I'm forgetting her last name. Shoot, but she wrote a book called Existential Kink, which is about this very topic of, hold on, why am I standing in line? It kind of hit her as a philosopher, why she's getting food stamps and experiencing poverty. What is it about me that gets off on this experience, that wants this
Mm.
existential kink, and really examining these parts of ourselves that actually desire some of this stuff. And and then she goes into the importance of like sort of getting on the side of it, as she put it, and like, let me just be with it and feel it fully and own it and allow it to be, so that it can move instead of
Mm.
resisting it all the time and pushing it away, and it's bad, and it's, you know
Yeah.
and I think that's really powerful to realize. You need these we're in a realm of duality, and they're all tools for us to experience and know thyself.
Yeah. And the movement is necessary, right? We tend to repress the emotions. Like you said, she was talking about feeling the emotions so that it can move.
Yep,
I
yep,
often
yep.
say that emotion is energy in motion,
Absolutely.
and it wants to move through you when, due to a lot of programming and conditioning for thousands and thousands of years, we haven't been taught or programmed to feel our emotions without judgment. And the judgment part is the part of the ego and the 3D. But I believe that we're shifting. We're
Yep.
moving out of that.
Agreed.
Yeah.
Agreed. People, anyone listening to this broadcast, that's what's interesting about, podcast and anything really. That which is like unto itself is drawn. Water seeks its own level. So out of the infinite things vying for your precious attention right now, you've tuned into this broadcast because you're, such a close vibrational match to, you know, Will and his show and me as a guest in this moment, that, it's kind of like you think of Source as an infinite tree expanded in all directions infinitely, roots and branches, and never stops. And yet there's still going to be a branch with two leaves flapping in the winds of eternity next to each other. And so anyone tuning into this broadcast is, congratulations. I know we're close relatives, and therefore you're doing the work, because I'm doing the work, and here we are, And so and I think that's important. It's something to be proud of. We get so caught up in comparison and stack ranking and I was just spending time with a dear friend of mine last night. Do you know Shaman Durek?
Yeah.
By any chance? So he's a close friend of mine, and him and his fiance were at my house last night, and we were talking a lot about some of his experiences with the really upper echelon of the spiritual community, and some of these people who aren't even everything that they kind of portray behind the scenes, and how disappointing it was to him, the inauthenticity or focus on numbers and all those things. And it's really good for someone like myself to hear, because it's like, yeah, just because someone on the surface is further along, or whatever, oh, he's got millions of followers or whatever, that doesn't mean better or more advanced, or that person is getting what they need for their growth. I saw something recently where it said, if a man needs money to evolve, nothing can stop him from having it. And contrary, if a man he needs to have a lack of money in order for its spirit's better evolution, nothing can help him to get it. You're gonna get what you need for your growth, and it's individual. And this better than, based off of these cultural constructs, are a joke. They really don't mean anything. You are it. You are the source as much as any other being is the source, and just as valid and worthy of all the great things that life has to offer as anyone ever has been, could be, or will be.
Yeah. Thank you for sharing this. I'm sure there are people that needed to listen to this. And as you mentioned, thank you all for being here with us, watching or listening to this, and doing the work. Yeah. I would like to talk about one key that caught my attention. I love intentions. I always talk about intentions. So one of them is align your intentions. And so I actually, if you don't mind, I'd like to just read a part of
Sure,
your book.
that'd be great. Yeah.
It's from the chapter um, Align Your Intentions, the Ultimate Intention. So you write, we have control over our intention at a personal level, which can impact the intention at a societal level. But there is also the ultimate intention, which comes from source, God, creator, higher self, the universe. Since we live in a free will universe, we can set whatever individual intention we want, but if it is not aligned with the intention of your higher self or the universe, the result you get might be less than desirable. We've heard the saying, the road to hell is paved with good intentions, but in this new phase of humanity's evolution, I would say, Brandon would say, the road to heaven is paved with aligned intentions. I really love that. And it actually ties in with what you were saying about, if you set the intention to make money because that's aligned with your mission and your soul's journey, then that's going to happen, right? Can you talk a little bit about the power of intention? And I know you mentioned also The Power of Intention, the book by Dr. Wayne Dyer.
Yes,
I love. He's one of my
I
favorites.
love him too. Yes, I'm with you on that. Yeah, I love that you brought this particular key up. And it is touching a little bit on some of the things that I touched on earlier. It's like, okay, I can have my set of intentions, but then there's other levels of my being, and they may, like, for example, if all of a sudden I had the intention to get money at all costs, and that means I know my roommate down the hall has $1,000 in their drawer, their room's unlocked, and I could go in and get it. That is not necessarily going to align with the higher intentions of my higher self or source, and therefore it may generate less than desirable results. But I believe as we become more of our true self, is allowing more of higher self to come through our vessel. And so your attention is aligned. I'm speaking as source more, or higher self. It is me and I am it. The more I'm allowing and creating the space, then your intentions are always in line, and therefore you're getting results that are expected more often than not. because there's not the friction between my human and my higher self. And I think that's what we're moving to. We're becoming, I know my higher self is living more fully and speaking more fully through me than it did 10 years ago, and so I'm aligning more and more with the intention, the ultimate intention of higher self in the universe. And one of the things that I always say, I talk about in that chapter that I think it's important to point out is, if you want to know the outcome of in the new world that's arising, right? We're here, and those of us doing shows like this, I mean, it's wild to think about, to even 10 years ago, this was barely possible, right? And here we are spreading this, and it's reaching ears so easily. And, but you go back 100 years and you hear about like the Rockefellers and JP Morgan Chase, and some of these people's intentions were to dominate and control and accumulate all the wealth. And in that world, it actually served the growth of humanity for it to work, more so. Like there was a season for separation from source. And, these souls, using these people as examples of people who just accumulated and controlled a lot. And now we're seeing sort of the pangs of a lot of that control being loosened. But you can't have it loosened and overcome without it being in place to begin with. And for us to have the experience of creating the new world, there has to be an old one that we have to, disrupt, in a sense. Yeah. And so ultimately it's happening for the good of the whole evolutionary process. But, in the world that's emerging now, you see so much spiritual awakening and so forth happening on this planet. I believe if you want to really understand the outcome of what it is that you're doing, it's real simple. You don't need to know the particulars. Will I make $1 million? Will the business be successful? All you need to know is, what is the intention going in? Mm-hmm. Because whatever your intention going into any endeavor is, that intention will be flavored in the outcome. Mm-hmm. So you might not know the particulars, but what was my intention? Oh, my intention was coming from a really pure, heart-centered, loving place. Oh, cool. Your results will mirror that in some way, shape, or form. Oh, it was for selfish reasons, and I was looking to, okay, well, your results will mirror that in some way. Whatever the details are, that'll be the beating heart of it. You know what I mean? And so I think that's a really cool thing to understand in the new world that's emerging, that, people won't get away with the things they did in the past, because in the past, those malintentions actually were serving the times, in a sense. The collective. Is what I'm, right. And the times that are here now, good luck to anyone doing, devious things is all I can say. Because I don't see that. I see that becoming quicker and quicker to just bite you right back. So
yeah. Let me ask you this, because it just popped up. What's your take on fate, destiny? Yeah. Do you believe that perhaps on a soul level, that soul has chosen to incarnate here to experience scarcity, and that's it, or that can change? What's your take?
It's a great question, and it's one I touch on in the book. I believe that our lives play out at the corner of free will and destiny. Is it free will? Yes. Is it destined? Yes. Or these relative truths, divine dichotomy, two apparently contradictory things that both hold true. You and I are separate. Yes. You and I are one. Yes. Depending on the vantage point from which we are speaking. So is it free will? Yes. Is it destined? Yes. And the way I view that breaking down, I actually reference and share a story called The Egg in the book. You can actually find a great rendition of it on YouTube where they act it out. It's a short story, but the one that obviously the people are from England, in the person that plays God is a cute English woman. I really like that version. There's a few on YouTube, but I recommend that version. And basically what this story shares, I really resonate with the idea of it. Like, source is one, and at some point we are like droplets off of source, that pods that hatch off of source. And then we decided to play this game called physicality, and we create all these lifetimes where as we level up, we get to drop into certain lifetimes. Like, to be Brandon Beachum, there's other souls part of the one that have played this character. I've leveled up to a point where I get to play this role, and you get to play Will. And at some level I played Will and you played Brandon, and and on it, and you name it. I've been, you've been Hitler and you've been Gandhi, and you've been, you play all the roles. And it's wild to think about, but in the context of eternity, no time, it's literally like a blink, which is mind-boggling for our human brains. But so you start thinking of life like that, and then, okay, so I dropped into a particular avatar character, Brandon, for example. He has a lot of potentials. I remember my first psychic reading, 20 some years ago. The woman said, "Oh, I see you in a cold place like Chicago working in business." My jaw hit the floor. I was about to graduate college and move to Chicago and work in business. Then she said, "Oh, I see another path for you in California in music." 6 months later, I formed a band and met someone from California, and here I am 20 some years later. So what was she seeing in that moment? The potential Brandons, I believe, right? They're both true. Which version will I choose this time based off of my free will? But yet they're destined to, because time is an illusion and it's all already happened. However, source is so vast, there's many versions of Brandon, right? Now, there may not be one where at this point, I go on to play center for the Los Angeles Lakers. So there is some, based off of the avatar, its age, its, what possibilities. But from this moment forward, everyone hearing these words, I believe there's many, 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 many versions of you, right? And it's already happened. Source has already been there, done that, and gotten the t-shirt, because time is an illusion, right? However, free will comes in because you get to co-create and choose which version you step into. And you do that by being it to see it. You don't just do something like work in order to have something like money, in order to be something like happy. That's the way most people operate. Do, have, be. You be something like happy, and you find yourself doing and having things that reflect that, right? It starts from within. And so by being the essence and energy and intention of your greatest and grandest self, you don't even need to know the particulars. Allow that to be a surprise. You literally navigate vibrationally into that version. You be it to see it. You attract it to you, or you step into that time. Bashar talks about we're stepping in and out of timelines all the time with our vibrational offerings. And so this, I believe, is how free will and destiny merge, right? It's all already happened. Yet from this moment forward, your aim is to be the greatest and grandest version of you that exist. And there are many options. No matter how grandiose or fabulous it may seem, source has been there, done that, gotten the t-shirt. So like I said, your aim is to align with that vibrationally, intentionally, and then step into it.
Yeah. Thank you for sharing. I love that. It's when we're talking about timelines, that's it's such a vast topic that can get
it's a lot
much for a little bit, but it's exciting. I love it. I have a couple of questions from two members of my community.
Cool.
They submitted. I have an online community called the Starseed Grid for everybody listening or watching. If you want to have this opportunity to submit questions to my guests, you can sign up to the community. The link will be in the description. So this one, and you've touched on a lot of the things, but it's very specific. So she's from Hungary, and she says, I haven't worked in many years because I have panic attacks. So She says, if I have to physically work with others, I get really stressed and I get
Mm,
panicked. And she says that she feels kind of hopeless, and
mm,
because of that, she feels ashamed and she feels like she
mm,
doesn't deserve many things in life.
mm,
And she feels like she doesn't deserve abundance in
mm,
any aspect of her life
mm,
because she feels like she's hiding from the outside world. And at the same time, she says, I know that abundance exists, but I
mm,
have this programming in my mind in this incarnation that for me is just not available.
mm,
Um, what can I do about this? Any
mm.
words of encouragement or inspiration for her?
The first thing that comes to mind that is probably um it's probably the a thing I would be willing to bet. I would guess. I could be wrong, but um trying to fully love that story, to absolutely whatever arises, love that, love what comes, right? So what my response to that whole story is congratulations. Congratulations that you are a brave enough, bold enough fractal of source consciousness that you are willing for the greater good of the collective to choose that intense degree of separation from the truth of who and what you are. What what bravery you represent. And you should really, I recommend really seeing and feeling and this concept, this idea, these words, this perspective that I'm sharing, and loving yourself for being bold enough to journey so long in this energy of lack and separation, and getting on the side of it and appreciating it and loving it and allowing it, and then watch what happens, and then see if there's some movement. There's no longer shame around it or pushing away. Actually, what if it's the opposite? You're so freaking bold and brave. You said, I'll take that. I'll carry that for the collective.
Yeah.
Wow. Like that's a very different way of looking at it, isn't it? Like it's not that you are so weak, it's that you're so strong, and just trusting the process that at you know what, when you've gotten what you need from that medicine, it'll move. It has to move. You know, energy in motion. Right now the energy is very stuck because there's a lot of judgment around it. And the truth of the matter is, whether you can feel it or not, it doesn't change the truth. You are literally one with the source consciousness that creates and animates all things. There has never been a soul more worthy than you because there is no other soul. It's just you playing a dance with yourself. You
Yeah.
can experience separation. You can experience, you can play lack of abundance and anxiety and all those things. And you know what? That's beautiful too. Because without it, source can't know itself. It can't know the beauty. So, you know, you may choose to continue that the rest of this lifetime. You don't have to. And I would be willing to bet that if you get on the side of it and bring love to it and appreciate where you've been, not judge where you've been, you'll start to see some movement. You'll start to feel some things shift.
Yeah.
Doing the thing that you haven't tried yet, loving it.
Yeah. I love that. Thank you so much. And tapping into what you just said earlier, that you are the universe, right?
Yep.
And the universe is nothing but abundance.
And once you've had that experience and then come out the other side, how much more powerful of a soul is she?
Yeah.
Right? I
Yeah.
mean, you know, who's more equipped to help someone else going through that very same thing than her?
Yeah.
Right? Literally, she walked it and came out on the other side and becomes a beacon of hope. And you know, and wow, like, you know,
Yeah. I love that perspective shift because I feel like many of the star seeds will resonate with it and will relate to this. And it's the perspective shift in what you just said. Like imagine that you were the brave one that said, I'll take that role. let's
Yep.
go.
Yep.
Obviously, you're here and you're like, why did I take that role?
Yep. Right. Right. And
Right.
it's not meant to feel great, but you can find peace with it.
Yeah, I love that perspective shift from that soul. It's really, really good. A really good tip.
Very
Thank you.
empowering.
The next one is coming from a member in Washington in the US. So she's talking about um, manifesting wealth. So she says, wealth seems to be a manifestation go-to. What is the best way for me to phrase the desire for a job? Do I set an exact dollar amount I want
Mm.
such a dollar amount I want such as $10,000 comes to me effortlessly, even though we know that it takes a lot of effort to get that large sum? Or do we affirm opportunities we can recognize as our focus instead of an exact amount?
Mm. Great question. Well, notice in there's a story.
Yeah.
It takes a lot to get to that 10,000. Does it? For who? For you? For the guy who made 10,000, you know, in the last 30 seconds? Probably not. Right.
Google,
And
CEO of Google.
I mean, since we've had this conversation, Bezos has probably made, $10 million. I mean, so it's all relative, right? And so I think what we touched on earlier, um, and I go over some techniques in the book for this, and some exercises. Really, where attention goes, energy flows, and so you can be general, you can be specific. I think being general is helpful because it allows for a lot of play. I believe our dance with our higher self is like, okay, I'll get into vibrational alignment and you surprise me with how that manifests itself, right? I'll bring the ingredients, you cook the soup. Like, and so what are the ingredients? You want to be it to see it. Where are you? Gratitude is the doorway to more. That's the appreciation is the doorway to by appreciating what you have is the quickest way to abundance.
Yeah.
Right now. So have you taken stock? I literally had this experience this morning. I always say we teach best what we most need to learn. I thought this an hour before we were, turning on this broadcast. There's more that I want to achieve. There's struggles that I've had. And then I'm looking around and I'm in this magical place with visionary art everywhere and beautiful souls that I'm co-creating a co-living and event space with. And yet I can take it for granted. And it's so unique and special and powerful. And yet here I am like, oh, I need more, I want taking stock of what it is what wealth do you currently have? Health is the ultimate wealth. Financial energy is just a reflection of your feeling wealthy, you're being wealthy. So finding small ways to be it to see it. Can you go and help someone, buy someone a cup of coffee, do some little act that's demonstrating that you have it to give, right? I noticed I had a business partner years ago, the same one that betrayed me, who used to spend money like it was crazy. Like, he was so frivolous with it. We viewed it, and I could be tighter as a business partner, like, dude, you just spend. But I noticed it kept more would come to him. Now these years later, he's got the biggest weed farm in the United States and, makes, I think he's made like $30 million in the last few years in his personal bank account, some insane amount of money. But he was always in that energy of currency, allowing it to flow. So if you can find a way, it's meant to flow. You're a conduit. You're not overly holding on. Doesn't mean to be frivolous with it, but finding ways to allow what you have to flow in a way that feels really good. It's telling the universe that you have it to give. And so being it in any way that you can, energetically is more important than anything else. So being it and tapping into that energy, not you can certainly, if you feel inspired to set a certain dollar amount, you can do that. But maybe, Abraham says it really well. This idea I have, or something better, right? Maybe it's 100,000, right? Because there is no limit. I mean, there are stories. Go read stories of, I share one in the book of Dr. Bruce Lipton needing, I forget, $80,000 for, some publishing of his first book, and doing these meditations and things to try and call in the money. And miraculously, out of nowhere, his wife had forgotten about an investment from 30 years early, and all of a sudden they send her a check, and it's like the amount he needs. And it's all magic. The universe is magic. There is no limit to how it can show itself to you. It can come in ways you never even dreamed or thought possible if you get into the vibration of wonder. Lest you become like the Bible, one of the only Bible verse I quote, lest you become like a child, you can't enter a kingdom of heaven. You want to be in heaven? You want to live in the land of magic and make believe and fairy tales and all of that? Become like a child. They could expect Superman to come through the window in any moment with their hearts, right? So really tapping into what you already have to be grateful for. It's the quickest pathway. You have so much to be grateful for. There are billionaires who would give everything they have with their terminal illness to trade you for what the abundance, the wealth you already have. And here we are not appreciating it. You forget, oh, that's old news. Like, you have a lot to be grateful for. Feel that as much as you possibly can and watch how it expands.
Yeah. And what's your take on the belief system or limiting belief system? Do you think that plays a role in not even attracting, but being open to receive abundance?
100% it does. It's you are the creator and created rolled into one. Abracadabra translates to I create as I speak. It is, we all know how hard it is to get $10,000. Oh, the creator just said it's hard for $10,000. They wove their magic wand. They're spelling, they're casting a spell. Their words are their wands. So start choosing different stories and see what's possible. I mean, literally, last night I spent time with my friend Durek. I just referenced him. I'll use him as an example. Here's a person who grew up, fourth generation shaman, a lot of some health challenges, died and came back at one point, very unconventional, bisexual Black guy, fourth generation or sixth generation, I forget, many generation shaman, meets the princess of Norway. Dad is king of the whitest country on the planet. And he's about to marry into 6 years later into the royal family, the first Black man in, royal family in all of Europe's history. A bisexual, spirit worker, spirit shaman, what's the chances of that unfolding? But if you talk to him and look at the way he views and the magic he expects, the universe is just mirroring his belief, and that he could experience being that, in all the history of Europe, the only man to ever achieve such a thing.
Yeah, and break the patterns as well, and show
the patterns.
What's possible. I love that.
Right. There's nothing that's out of your reach. You are your only barrier, and the good news is that's the journey you set up so that you can overcome it. Just like our last question, that person set up the barrier so that they, my brother one time didn't pay a ticket years ago, and he got pulled over years later, forgot about it. And they're like, oh, we have a warrant for your arrest. He's the most sensitive person I know. He gets thrown in jail for like 3 days. He comes out like traumatized, like, oh my gosh, like that energy of that place, they release him at like 12:01 p.m. just after midnight so they can charge for another day. I pick him up at 1:30 in the morning. I'm cooking a hot pocket for him. because he's hardly eaten in days. To this day, he's had many 5-star Michelin meals and eats well. If you ask him what's the best meal you ever had, you know what he says? That Hot Pocket. Why? Because of the contrast of what he just experienced to the freedom. And here, this, what we would view, turn our nose up as, garbage food is, and that's what your soul is doing. That's the dance.
Yeah.
And once you get that, you really can move forward with clear view of why.
Yeah, and I love that story because it's a clear example of what you said earlier, that we're here to experience the duality of it all, the
Yep.
shadow as much as the light, and there is no
Yep.
shadow without light, and vice versa, right?
Right. Right. It's all serving love so that love can mean something.
Yeah, wonderful. Brandon, I have final questions. They're very quick.
Okay.
And I call them fun and deep. So whatever comes up for you, you just fire away.
I
Um,
like that.
what is your definition of the universe?
Mm. Well, that's a great question, because as my 8th key is master the YOU universe, you are the lead actor, director, star in your own private movie. So when we talk about the universe, think for a moment, feel into what I believe firmly is the truth, that you're the only one here. You, God, source, higher self, the universe, it's so vast, it can create infinite universes. It has unlimited abundance. So, okay, let's give Will his own private universe. And that's the star there. And everything in that universe is nothing but a prop in Will's private movie, reflecting Will back to Will. Here's a prop. Will, the master creator, has created it. And let's call it Brandon. And it sounds like this, and it looks like this, and has this vibe, and yeah, that'll be a good prop. And here's it's all a prop in your movie. Of course you make it. Of course, you're the only one here. You're the star of your own private universe, and vice versa. Of course I make it. Of course I achieve great things. There's no one else here. I'm not seeing through any other vantage point. This is it. It's, in a sense, I'm alone here, and so are you. And it's the same thing, experiencing itself through different lenses. It's like, there's so when we get caught in these ideas of numbers and statistics and possibilities, and that's all just noise. Like, it's like, that's just noise that, by the way, you created to give yourself the experience of overcoming the noise. So, that's what the universe is to me. It's a very personal thing. I am it. It is me. It's like the Truman Show in a sense.
Yeah, love that. And Brandon, what brings you joy?
This, the reason I continue to do this is teach best what I most need to learn, because it's in giving that we receive. As St. Francis of Assisi said, or Gandhi put it, if you want to find yourself, lose yourself in the service of others. The reason I believe that holds true, there are no others. It's in giving that you receive. So you don't know your path. You don't know what to do next. You don't need to know. You don't dance to get to a certain spot on the floor. You don't listen to a song to get to the final note, right? The journey is the goal. What I can tell you, this hint though, is it will involve service in some way, because it's the only way. It's the only way to true joy and fulfillment. So look for the opportunities to give away what you want for yourself. Whenever you see that, jump on it, because that's how the energy comes back to you.
100%. Love it. Imagine all the books in the world were going to be destroyed and deleted forever, but you can save one.
Ooh,
Which one would
question.
you save?
All the books in the world are going to be deleted, and I can only save one. Well, wow, what a good question. I'll say my book, because it's my only book, and it's my story, my version, And so it is my truth. So if I can keep my truth close to me, then I'm less likely to forget again.
Yeah, and
And
that's your legacy as well for
yeah,
the world.
yeah.
Love that. And what is one thing that people might be surprised to know about you?
Like that one too. One thing that people might be surprised to know about me. Well, I started down my spiritual journey in the mid 90s, and I thought at the time, wow, I'm having my awakening. I'm source. I can do anything. Well, if I'm everything and can do anything, how would I express that, And I decided to start a band. And so I started a band called Kundalini,
I
and
love
we were sort of like Incubus meets the Police meets the Beastie Boys. At the time, our bass player's brother was in No Doubt. At the time, was one of the
yeah.
biggest bands on the earth, and
No doubt, yeah.
yeah. And we played. I saw flyers from us on the bill with like Linkin Park and Alien Ant Farm and Hoobastank and some of these bands that went on to be huge at the time. I always remember sound checking at the end of that one flyer where all the bands went on to be huge except for us, and the sound guy saying, "Wow, I see a lot of bands, but you guys blew me away after sound check." And they all went on to be big. And I always think, well, in another timeline, the Linkin Park guys are flipping burgers and we were like huge, and so a lot of people would probably be surprised to know that I was a musician at one time. I was the MC in the band. So I originally was making rhymes to, writing poetry, putting it to a beat, and talking about consciousness, very
Amazing.
early on, early
Is
2000s.
there a place we can find your music? And
Kundalini, yeah, there is. If you, I think if you go into SoundCloud, a few years ago, we finally uploaded things there. Kundalini band, maybe if you search, you'll see it looks like an eclipse on the front image of the
yeah,
album. So
well,
if you
that's
see, there might
wonderful.
be multiple Kundalinis out there, but the one that has the eclipse on the front cover. And then I went on to make a solo album. My initials are BBB, which is also one of the keys in the book. And I called my solo project Try B, TRY-BE, which is an oxymoron because you can't actually try to be, but it's like, try 3 Bs. So, yeah, so you can also hear that too. You go listen to solo music, which I'm actually really proud of that album that I made with me and just one other person producing. The guitar player from Kundalini did the production. So
That's amazing. I'm also a musician too, but more on the pop side.
Oh, cool.
And
Yeah.
I think what's great about your story too is that once you recorded it, you manifested it and it's there, right? And whether it became #1 on the Billboard chart or not, it's still there. And thanks to internet, we can access that. And that's wonderful.
Exactly.
Final question. I actually stole from Lewis Howes. I don't know if you've ever been on his podcast or.
I have not. No.
So don't take credit for the question, but I love it. It's called Three Truths. So imagine that many years from now, you're about to make the transition from this physical plane into the spiritual plane, and you have all of your book, podcasts, and your work will be deleted, and you have a piece of paper in front of you with a pen, and you can write your three truths. And this is what's going to live on for your family and the rest of the world. What would be your three truths?
Love that. Life is happening for you, not to you. Everywhere you go, you're there waiting for yourself. All is one.
That's wonderful. It's a great way to finish this interview. Thank you so much, Brendan. I want to acknowledge you for your work to help us remember our essence and our power, our true power. So thank you so much for sharing your light. And would you like to share how people can connect with you?
Yeah, sure.
And if there's any project as well in the pipeline that you would like to share?
Sure. Yeah, of course, going to goldenkey.gift using the code in the notes that you referenced earlier, and you can download the audio and or ebook. You can find the podcast, my podcast, Positive Head, anywhere you listen to podcasts. Let's see. I also did a late night style show where I released some of the episodes. Some I still need to release, but it was kind of pre-COVID, and COVID threw a little bit of a wrench in that project. But it was a live studio audience and interviews and retreat guests and visionary artists and musical performance. So, and that's called Optimystic. So if you check out Optimystic, spelled MYSTIC, optimistic.tv or YouTube, you can find some of those episodes. And may potentially be doing more of those in the future. I think, one project that the music platform that I said I was very strongly guided to release, back in 2009, I'm getting a lot of breadcrumbs to bring it back, and I'm exploring doing that. And you can sort of keep tabs on that. It's going to be all about using blockchain technology to support music artists, conscious artists, and giving them more of a voice and a platform. And if you go to Industry, is the website, and it's industr.ee. So it's like reinventing the music industry, but spelled like a tree. So Industry.
Wonderful. And any recording music, new music?
Nothing, maybe I've thought about it, possibly dabbling again, but we'll see what's in store. And if I feel inspired, inspiration, if it comes, then I'll listen.
Absolutely. Well, thank you so much for your time, and I had fun talking to you. Thank you so much.
Likewise. Thank you so much. And all of you out there for tuning in. It's been a real pleasure.
Thank you. Much love. Thanks so much for watching or listening to this episode. If you would like to learn more about Brandon's work, visit his website, www.positivehead.com. That's where you find all the podcast episodes as well. Thousands of podcasts that he has recorded over the years. You can also follow him on Instagram at Optimistic. It's Optimistic, and you'll find the links in the description. And just a quick reminder too, you can get your book for free with a code TWCP, which stands for the Will Caminada podcast. He is gifting his book for free. You can go to the link in the description, get your book, and leave your comments. Let us know what has resonated with you, what has been the biggest takeaway from this conversation. Also, if you would like the opportunity to submit questions to my upcoming guests, you can join our online community, the Starseed Grid. You can go to patreon.com/the Starseed Grid, and you'll have live events, 2 live events every month, and plus a bunch of things. And again, you'll find the link in the description. And as always, keep shining your light, keep your heart open, and let love lead the way. I'll see you in the next episode. Bye.